Welcome to a new YEV podcast. And with me, as usual, we've got Alex Grant and Kevin Booker. Kevin's looking very much like a fighter pilot from Star Wars New Hope, which is good to see. Don't forget to stay on target. This week we're going to be talking about budget predictions. The budget's this week, isn't it? So we thought it'd be interesting to chew the fat around what's potentially going to happen, what we think's, what is going to happen, and what we think that they should do. And it'd be great to get people's point of view on all of this. What people think that the government should be doing to, help EV adoption in the right way. So, Alex, where should we start on this rather large topic? Should we just quash the paper mile stuff that we were doing last week?
Yeah, I think that would be a fair place to start. That seems to have had the most coverage, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So I did see that. I think it was in one of the papers, one of the rags that was it Rachel Reeves or no, the Transport Secretary? I forget her name now. And she basically said, "Oh yeah, we're not going to be doing paper mile, but they are still looking into it." Is that right?
They've always been looking into it. This paper mile thing's been trickling away for years. It's going to take a long time. I mean, I think with that, you may well find that you'll get a couple of lines in the budget document that will say we'll hold a consultation in due course to find out, a public consultation, and you can tell us what you think of this and how we should do it properly, and then they'll keep kicking a can and kicking a can and kicking a can, and it'll get closer to the point where they'll have an election coming and they won't touch it then, and then it'll just disappear. I don't know how they're going to do it. I really don't know
exactly, and this is what we covered last week. And go back and watch it if you didn't see it. Basically, or listen to it if you're on Spotify. We decided that it was actually really, really difficult to bring in any paper mile. So that's probably why they need the consultation to bring it in a fair way. But I'd like to move on from paper mile because we did cover it in much detail last week. But I think it was a good idea just to mention that we haven't. Yes, they are doing a consultation for paper mile. Exactly, that's what I was just mentioning. I just wanted to touch on that, the fact that they're not hell bent on bringing it in so much now. I think they were talking about 2028, and now they're kind of they're just doing that consultation. So what's the next big news do you think that they're going to bring in budget wise? Because obviously the EV grant's been going quite well. Is there going to be any change to that? I think I've seen that they're going to be extending it, aren't they?
Yeah, they're extending it, which is an interesting one. I mean, that's been a little bit, I think, of word eating on my part, in that I was skeptical about the effect that would have. And what's been really interesting, sort of sitting in on presentations and stuff since, is the manufacturers that have missed out on the full grant, particularly the Chinese ones, have just offered aggressive deals that have made the difference up. So actually, what it's done is it's very effectively put downward pressure on prices. So yeah, I mean, I was a little skeptical about the kind of the sense in doing it, but it does seem to have had the effect of heightening the the amount of discounts that have been available. And there's been some really aggressive discounts anyway, even without the grant. But certainly with that in place, it's been a bit, there's been a huge pressure on prices over the last few months, which is really important.
And I think there's been quite a few arguments out there saying, wasting taxpayers' money on this government grants for electric vehicles. However, as I've seen in a few posts out there, a lot of people don't realise that, bearing in mind there's X amount of money that comes back to the government when someone purchases one of these electric vehicles, whether it's VAT and obviously all the positives that come out of, registering a car, and especially if it's because the government grant was against vehicles which tended not to be Chinese and tended to be more kind of European or UK based, not so much UK based companies, is it? Because I think Ford, did probably the best out of it.
Ford did,
yeah. I think the Ford Puma did really, really well out of it, because
that was the first.
So much so they sold all their allocation early for UK cars, which has mean that they brought forward the revised one with the longer range.
So band one is Citroen EC5 Aircross, Ford e-Tornado Courier, Ford Puma Jenny, and Nissan Leaf. So yeah, It's a pretty small pool, but I mean it's given people a reason to look at to look at prices again, and it's given everything a little nudge, which is always good. I mean, it's a market that needs to kind of find some stability price wise. I think the EV sector. I mean, there's been so much kind of downward pressure in prices, and with all the discounts and things, it's quite disruptive in terms of the used market. And what happens then further on down the pipe is that if you've got if you introduce a huge, great big discount of £4,000 on something that's already on sale, you're suddenly nibbling away at what it's worth second hand, and that's quite a risk to take on if you're, PCP or leasing, firm, and you're sort of taking the gamble on those prices.
Yeah, anyone that's on live right now, don't feel free to whack in your comments, because if you've got any questions or about the new budget coming in, or if you think there's any things that they should bring in for the budget, that would be a good idea for EV adoption, or helping the electrification of transport, whack it in the comments, because we're really keen to hear your thoughts. I mean, the EV grant and the paper mile, it's been touched on quite a lot. Is there anything that people aren't as aware of that might be happening in the new budget, Alex? So you got any kind of inside knowledge on that?
No, I mean, there's been an awful lot of discussion, to say, about those two main points, and the other one that could be an issue. There are some discussions about salary sacrifice for pensions, and capping salary sacrifice, the amount of the value of the amount, the value of the salary sacrifice, the value of the benefit that you're getting by salary through your salary sacrifice scheme. It's targeted on pensions. I've seen some rumblings that it might be looking at things like trying to stop people going off and using that money to go and buy, several £1,000s worth of electric bicycle through on cycle to work schemes. With EVs, the salary sacrifice, in a nutshell, you for those who don't know, your employer will lease you a car. You'll pay for the monthly rentals out of your pre-tax salary. You're then taxed on the remaining salary as if it's income, and then you instead of paying tax on the amount of money that the monthly rental costs, it's valued based as on like a company car tax type basis. So obviously you're paying that amount of money, but you're towards the monthly rentals, but then you're paying a very small amount in tax on top. So usually it's much cheaper than,
It's unlike it's unlike the British government not to tax us a large amount, isn't it? They've actually, they're reducing the tax amount, which makes a change, since though they tax us on everything else while we're alive and then when we're dead. So it's actually quite refreshing, really.
The issue that's had, I mean, those schemes are, if you look at all the figures, I mean, those schemes, salary sacrifice, because the system is capped at 75 grams per kilometre, basically all of the vehicles that go through that are, I mean, there's no real reason, unless you're getting really good discounts in terms of renting another vehicle, there's no reason for you to get anything else through it. You get the best discounts through, for getting an EV. What is quite interesting is that there was a report that came out about a year ago where they were talking about how this was a very imbalanced system, and something like 2/3 of the people who were on it were higher rate taxpayers and things like that. That holds some water. I mean, salary sacrifice 10 years ago used to be kind of, I'm going to pick a stereotype, but it was usually kind of lower paid earners, and it was enabling them to get a brand new car that they could use for work. So, if they were doing house calls, like district nurse or something, people like that, where they wouldn't necessarily have like a company car scheme, but they would be able to get something small, cheap to run around in, and they would get it at a good price. What it's now doing is generally speaking, it seems to be kind of funding not all, but because of the nature of the market, there have been a lot of people who've been getting really quite expensive cars through these schemes. So I'm not surprised that might be on the radar, and it would fit that might be something that they would look at.
What do you think they'll do? Because I know that you've always preferred to suggest that they cap it at a total amount, like, I don't know, sub 40 grand or sub 50 grand EVs, rather than people going out there and buying Porsche Taycans and BMW i5s, what have you.
Yeah, so I wouldn't cap it. I mean, the more you earn, the more you get taxed. The more you get taxed, the more tax you can potentially save, and the bigger the discounts you get on the schemes. So you get the best deals on EVs the more you earn, and obviously the more you earn, the more likely you are in general to have off-street parking and avoid like expensive, public charges and stuff. So from that perspective, as I say, it does. I wouldn't cap it, as in I wouldn't say you can't access but I would have a kind of a sliding scheme in terms of the amount that the amount of discounts that you could get on it. I think that would probably work. Just introduces a little bit of a kind of rather than just enabling people who can already afford to go out and buy, probably can afford to go out and buy a brand new car to buy a slightly better new car. It means that you're then kind of targeting those benefits on lower earners as well. But the nature of the market where we are at the moment, we've had a number of kind of quite important, quite desirable, cheaper vehicles coming into the market. I mean, things like even like Dacia Spring and the what's the Hyundai called? I can't think what it's called. The little one that the Insta. That's it. I was thinking of the Casper because that's the ICE version they sell in Korea. You've got little vehicles like that coming on stream, which could work really well in a salary sacrifice environment. So that will naturally start to influence that market. But at the moment, I mean, it is a high end weighted market, and so there needs to be perhaps looking at ways to make that more attractive for lower income earners and slightly less advantageous for that really high income earners.
So, and one of the biggest providers of that scheme is NHS Fleet Solutions as well. So they do a lot of salary sacrifice within the public sector. I mean, that does have a living wage check on it. So you can't pick a car that would push you below the living wage.
Yes. Yeah.
So
that's the big issue, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if more affordable EVs open those schemes up to loads and loads and loads more people.
So if you were doing a personal financing, you could choose to push yourself below the living wage if you've got no other outgoings, but you can't on most of the salary.
Yeah, because it's coming out of your gross income.
Yeah.
I suppose it's like. Sorry, go on, mate. No, you go.
No, I was going to say, so there's nothing yet officially that suggests that this is 100% going to happen, and a lot of it seems to be aimed on pensions. And I've seen some other bits, as I say, talking about bicycles, and actually, I think they would be quite brave to undermine a market that is almost exclusively EV and certainly plug-in hybrid as well, but mostly battery electric. That would be quite a short-sighted move.
I think I've seen that. So you go, mate.
Yeah, I think with the bicycles, I think one of the big things is people. I think we're using it to get multiple bicycles. So if you're and you're talking not like your little, couple of £100 bike. You're talking people were getting 9-10 grand like carbon fiber bikes on it. So because you could do it effectively tax free. But I mean, there's always a proviso on that, which is why I've never taken that scheme up, is you have to cycle to work. And I'm not prepared to cycle from Swansea to Brecon.
So I see myself cycling all the way to Southampton from Northampton, Sheer. Not that would take a little while. I'd certainly be fit after it, that's for sure. I think it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do to tweak things, not just to make them better, but also to maybe refine some of the stuff that they've done in the first place. So I'd be interested to see what they might be doing around tax for cars. Because obviously they brought in the road fund license tax for electric cars, blanket £195 pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's over a certain amount of money under a certain age. Do you think they're going to make any changes to road tax for electric vehicles?
I think it's going to go.
Wait, hold your horses. Also, changing some of the diesel ones that I certainly get upset by, and I think some of the other listeners and watchers of this podcast get really annoyed the fact that there's diesels out there only paying £20-30.
I think they'd be brave to do it because the ones at that end of the scale are at least 8 years old now. You're into sort of banger territory. You're over the average age of a vehicle in the UK. I think it's going to be hard to put a massive tax ramp up on those vehicles. Yeah. No matter how right it might seem, they're getting on to be quite old cars now.
Can you answer Lewis Standing's one there about BLK rates?
Where are we? Yes, the BLK rates. Yeah, what do they go up? So the EVs go up, have a steeper curve by nature of the fact that they go up in 2 percentage point increases in the last 2 years to the end of the decade, so 2028 and 2029. But they're still significantly cheaper than the next band up, which is plug-in hybrids, which are going to be lumped together from 2028.
When you say lumped together, like with other hybrids?
At the moment, if you're under 50 grams per kilometer CO2, you have a series of, I think, 8 bands where they're all based on your electric range. And we're getting down to the point now where some vehicles are actually able to get into the lower end of that scale. So they're not far off EVs. From 2028, they're removing that sliding scale. Anything between 1 and 50 grams per kilometer, which is most of your plug-in hybrids, apart from the few that are now being retested and going way above that figure, which is quite interesting to watch. There was an Autocar piece on that, I think, a few days ago. I'm sure it was Autocar. So we started to basically all of those overnight. The best performing ones in those will go from I think 6% through to 18% BIK overnight, which is quite a chunky rise. But even then, they're still significantly cheaper than anything else above those. So there's going to be a big, even when you get to 2020, when you get to 2030, obviously, yes, EVs will have had quite a large increase in tax, but equally they'll still be much lower than anything else. So I mean, I think it's inevitable we'll get the rises on those. People just need foresight and they need to stick to it. That's the main thing that they need to do, is kind of go, this is it, we're not going to change it. You will still get a discounted rate on these EVs for the next 5 years. Buy it, go and do it, get into it.
The other thing to note as well is,
do you think this will tempt more people into leasing their own car and coming out a company car?
No, I think at the moment it's such, I mean, if you can get an EV on company car scheme, then it's a no-brainer. You just wouldn't bother getting a car through any other means. Same with salary sacrifice. I mean, salary sacrifice is such a crazy good scheme for getting an EV. Unless you're buying used, there's no real other way to get an EV as cheap as you'll get one on a salary sacrifice scheme. Because you, generally speaking, not always, but you can generally speaking get not only low tax rates, it's not even the tax efficient way of doing it, because your employer saves on NI as well, the national insurance as well. So there's that. So there's advantages for an employer to offer this. But you also get bulk discounts in many cases. So if you're work for a big company and they're buying lots of company cars and you just dob this onto the side of it, basically, it's not as simple as that. That's making it sound really, really easy when it's not. But you kind of add this onto the side of it, and you can then sometimes benefit from cheaper, bulk discounts that you wouldn't get as a private customer.
Yeah. The other thing as well to note is on the road tax, it goes up with RPI, so it's likely to go up to 205 for electric cars from the next financial year.
Yeah, wonderful.
So
it's the sort of positive news I wanted, Kev.
The other thing as well with that is that they're still kicking a can down the road with the expensive car supplement, which affects a huge percentage of EVs that are over the. So for your first 5 renewals, up to the point where the car is 6 years old, you will be paying an additional. First 5 years. So first 5 tax renewals, it's an extra 425 quid on top of the 195, and that will also go up with inflation. So that'll be more like 435, 440 next year.
I can't see many people wanting to stomach that, because generally speaking, people are buying an electric car to save money. I would say that's the biggest part of changing to electric. I haven't got any data to support that, but it just kind of seems to make sense to me. So.
Yeah, yes, and no. I mean, it's still in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of it's a couple of months of your lease payments, isn't it? It's not a huge expense. If you're as a private buyer, you'll probably feel it more. If you're leasing a car, it's probably rolled into the monthly costs anyway, and you don't necessarily notice it. But yeah, it is a chunk added onto the cost of the car. I mean, over the course if you have a car for 3 years. It's going to be adding at least 1,200 quid onto the cost of the vehicle, isn't it? And that's not small change. The issue is when you've got vehicles where the petrol or diesel or hybrid version is under 40,000 and the electric one is over that threshold, and then you've got this crazy situation where it's cheaper to tax the same car when it's not a plug-in hybrid or an electric car, which just feels to me to be completely wrong-headed. And there's been quite a few cases of that with plug-in hybrids for years, and then now you've also got that issue with certain EVs. I'll have to go and check to remember which, because a lot of them have been nudged under the 40 grand mark to kind of avoid that situation. It's not. It just feels really wrong-headed to kind of disincentivize somebody, because you've got to save quite a lot of money on fuel to kind of start to pay back some of those costs, haven't you? It's adding another chunk on top of it.
I had a little look at the ChatGPT data, and it did suggest that actually the strongest reason to change to EV, 35%, because it was for environmental concerns. However you want to see that. 31% was fuel prices. 27% was rising penalties on internal combustion engines. So maybe I wasn't quite right. It generally leads to, I think most people now that I speak to are going for electric because of cost. I think the early adopters are probably more so the environment. But sorry, Kev, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I've heard whispers of, I don't know if it's going to happen, is that they are going to tweak the Motability scheme. They're going to put a cap on the type of vehicles that you can get on it, because there's a perceived, whether it's true or not, a perceived thing that possibly 80,000-90,000 pound Mercedes shouldn't be on the scheme. But I mean, I don't know if they'll do that. I mean, again, it's a brave government that does anything around those sort of things. So, and there could be a requirement for someone who has a big vehicle. If they've got a range of disabilities, they might need a big SUV that can, be wheelchair adapted. So it'll be interesting to see if they do anything on that as well.
You might know the answer to this, Alex, and then I'd better dig into the comment, but this really interests me. What was the kind of catalyst for so many Motability registrations? Because it didn't used to be as big as it was. I mean, did they throw the net out that much further in terms of ranges of disabilities, in terms of who could take advantage of one? So what was the catalyst there? When did that change? Because it does seem to be
it's big, isn't it?
There's a lot of Motability cars out there now.
I'll be honest, I'd be guessing. It's not a topic I've covered in huge amounts of detail, so I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, I know it's the UK's biggest fleet, isn't it, Motability?
Yeah. And you would think
by far.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I've seen quite a few interesting job roles go for Motability around EV recently, which kind of backs up what Kev and yourself was talking about. But it'd be really interesting to know when that switch happened, because it does seem to be that I think that the barrier to get a Motability car has lessened quite a bit over the years. Well, certainly a number of years ago, hence why it's the biggest fleet now. But let me dive into the comments. There's quite a few in here. So Fox, thanks for coming, mate. To be able to drive a Citroen Ami on a provisional license like in France, I think that's not a bad idea. Be better than the hoodlums riding around on illegal electric scooters. And I hasten to add, I was following two on a country road, no lights at all. I was like, what's that? Oh, it's two guys on it must be guys, electric motorbikes. And I was like, I'm so glad I saw them, because am I potentially what if I had to hit one and kill them? Who's liable then? I don't know. I'm interested to know in the comments, any lawyers out there. Malcolm has just put in, it would be good to see something really bold, like getting rid of electric standing charges rather than cutting 5% VAT, which has been suggested. Yeah. What do you think, guys, on that?
I mean, it's an interesting one, standing charges, isn't it? Because, you pay them, like, for example, I don't use gas every day, but I pay a standing charge just to have the connection. So it's one of those things you can never not pay anything for your electricity, and you work it out. I think it's about roughly £300 per utility per year just for being connected. So I know that pays for the grid and things like that. But I'm sure that, there must be a better way of doing it, even if they kind of roll it in a little bit to or roll it
cost,
into, so you don't actually pay if you're not using it one day. Yeah, because that would encourage people to get more battery storage and stuff, so they could that would be a way to promote it. And yes, it would put the cost up a little bit, but at least then you've got people who aren't using it,
makes
not paying.
It fairer, doesn't it? It's at the moment it's like having paying the same mobile phone contract, whether you use it once or twice a month, or whether you use it once or twice a month.
And do you think it disproportionately affects people who are less able to pay. The fact that if you try and use less, and you're still stuck with this $300 a year bill if you sit in the cold.
Yeah.
So
I didn't realise that it'd been suggested to cutting 5% VAT on the electricity. That's an interesting one. I think they should be focused on maybe 20, removing, I'm not sure if this has been floated before, but removing the 20% VAT on maybe AC charges and leave the rapid charges. So anything that's DC charges, because I know that Kev's a big fan of that one, and I think that makes sense. So AC charges get only 5% VAT, and then DC charges get 20%. Has that ever been thought about before? That sounds like
I've not seen that. No,
let's be fair. They couldn't separate them for the rapid charging thing. The difference between AC and DC, so they're not going to be able to work out how to separate them any other way, are they?
No, I'm not sure how they do that. I'm sure that there would be a company that would be able to do that somewhere, but that just seems to make sense to me, because then the people that are charging like slowly, whether that's overnight, and they can't take advantage of charging outside their home because they haven't got a driveway or they live in a flat. It just seems to make sense to me. It'll bring down those costs down. They can put a load more AC charges. It will stop the, 2-tier charging system, which is definitely there. You can't really argue that, in my opinion. But it keeps the DC charges as they are. That just seems to make sense to me in my little brain. But yeah, you guys, what do you think? Is that a good or bad idea?
I would suggest the issue with that might be that if you do that, you would also need to put more of them in residential areas, because I think otherwise, a lot of people who perhaps don't have home chargers may well be making more use of the DC stuff when they're going that bit further. Or when they're sorry,
you couldn't argue that though, as in that's a good idea. We need to do that anyway, so that kind of makes sense.
It'll increase sales of the Renault Kangoo. They can do 22 kilowatt AC.
We should be thinking about stuff like that, shouldn't we? I mean, that nudging towards kind of those middle ground chargers where they're not kind of the cost of installing a rapid in many cases. They're kind of the installation costs are a bit more affordable, and the vehicles are able to take a suitably quick charge without having to.
We'll have to work that out. Actually, we'll have to work out what is the best electric car that can charge at 11 or 22 kilowatts, which is reliable, has got a really strong range. I had the 41 kilowatt hour Renault Zoe in my head, but does that charge at 22 or 11?
So some of all the Zoes charge at 22 at least.
Yeah.
Some do 43, but that's the really early ancient ones. Kangoo van, Megane, the Scenic. So a lot of Renault stuff does 22, but actually, if you look at most new EVs, they do 11. Most of them support 3-phase charging these days.
Yeah, 2022.
Does your Rifter support? Is yours a 3-phase charger on the?
It was optional. It was optional. Ours doesn't have the option.
I'm glad Fox has mentioned this. Allowed to make electric scooters legal, not living in the Stone Age. I'm absolutely for this, right? But arguably, you can have an electric scooter, an electric motorbike. You just have to register it. But it is. I don't know what the costs are. Has anyone looked into the costs before? It just seems, maybe that is a good idea. We don't see enough of that, do we? Or is it just because people just don't like British weather and being able to go on that type of vehicle?
I agree that that there needs to be a bit of movement on this. I mean, it's been years since we had the scooter trials, and nothing seems to have gone on from that. It just seems to have got stuck in a rut, doesn't it? Which and it feels to me like quite an obvious thing to have those. But I think the issue is there's been a large amount of imported kind of low quality scooters with battery packs that are not, with poor battery management and issues with fires and stuff. I mean, I think it's one of those things that could do with being regulated, isn't it? You bring a vehicle, you're allowed to have the scooter in the UK, but it has to be, it has to go through a certain number of tests and meet certain standards before it can be sold here.
Well, you think they do it with e-bikes or electric bikes? There's regulations on how much power output, what speed. So I think really with an e-scooter, all it needs is it's going to have some sort of registration, but it should be a minimum level of public liability. So if you hit someone on it, and wear a helmet. That's kind of the thing. And obviously standards on, maximum speed and stuff, which is kind of, you could adopt the e-bike one with that, which is, I think, is it 12 miles an hour on an e-bike that it'll only assist for? So the kind of regulations are half there anyway.
It's 15.5 miles an hour, 250 watt motor, has to be pedal assist, no twist and go. I think
half there, aren't they? Anyway, you just adopt the bike one.
They just need to sort it out, because I think that would help out so many people that struggle to get around and afford, whether it's a vehicle, car, public transport, that sort of thing. And that's got to be a positive, right? I mean, that will help businesses, that sell those sort of things. I just think I can't see many negatives to it. I mean, I'm sure there will be accidents, because that's life, but it seems to be something that, they do need to just move forward, rather than it feels like we're going backwards on it.
But the main thing is with the scooter rentals is there's a public liability cover there, isn't there? And that's kind of what you need, because if you do hit someone, I mean, you could argue that possibly for the number of cyclists that there should be some sort of minimum level of coverage, because there have been some quite recent cases where people have been injured or killed by cyclists going through red lights and things like that. London seems to be a bit of it. I think there was a study, one of the radio programs studied how many cyclists went through red lights in London, and it was some huge number that just went through red lights.
It is a crazy amount. It does seem a little bit crazy to put any sort of insurance tax or liability on cyclists. It just
I think you'd struggle with it.
Yeah, that sounds a bit odd. Lewis standing. So I think it's a rather silly idea, given salary sacrifice company car schemes are a major buyer of EVs, and the private market is in its infancy. Salary sacrifice is the only EV success story. I'd say there's probably a few more than that. So why would you kill it, unless using the money to give all EVs VAT-free purchases under 50k, for example, what Norway do now? Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
To be fair, salary sacrifice is growing quickly, but it is still a relatively small volume compared to the traditional company car stuff, which is certainly, in terms of being a majority EV market, the salary sacrifice is streets ahead because of the nature of what it is. But actually, in terms of actual volume, it's still relatively low compared to the traditional company car market.
And it does limit you. It does limit you to an extent, because obviously you are kind of in a way trapped in your job for the period of your lease,
the appeal, isn't it?
Without a penalty. So that's why employers like it, but some people won't take it up because they think, well, I might want to move on, and then I'm stuck with potentially a penalty of handing the car back, and some of them can be quite significant. Really? The cost to hand your EV back early.
What sort of costs are they, Kev?
Some can be 50% of the lease. Not the least, for the remaining payment. So in year one, there's usually a tiered thing. So it depends on how far you are in it. But if you need to get out of it in year one, it can be a significant cost to you.
I mean, I've had company cars years and years and years, and then I just like to have my own car. Just love it. You don't have to worry about, if something happens, it's down to you. It's just,
and that's the one thing people don't always think about with a salary sacrifice scheme is what their position is if they're made redundant, because some of those things can apply if you're made redundant, that you have to get out of your car. So you could be made redundant and then have to pay 50% of your lease balance to give your car back.
To be fair, I think it's quite common for certainly larger employers to have a contingency plan in place for things because long-term sick can affect your income and push you under that minimum wage bracket, which can then affect your eligibility for, if you're quite a low earner, it can affect your eligibility as well. So I mean, you can have contingency plans put in place if you, for example, if you use some of the savings that you were getting as an employer to have as a backup plan to make sure that you had something there to cover to provide that insurance basically on it. So I agree. It's not a market that I would want to be fiddling with too much, but I do think having some kind of a ramp in terms of, how much you get back. So as I say, to avoid having people going off and buying £100,000 heavily subsidised cars, I think is hard to justify at the moment.
America's put cutting 20% VAT on public charging would be helpful. We've got
another can that gets kicked down the road, isn't it? It keeps going around and around.
Mark Cornwall, seeing that Twizy, I really want to drive a Twizy. The good news is the budget won't remove any of the benefits of having a green number plate, as nothing happened.
Yeah.
I seen that Twizy there though. The Twizy did do 60 miles an hour, didn't they? Because there were two versions of it. There was like the slow version, which is the Yami equivalent, and there was a Twizy that would do 60 miles an hour. There was a high
upgrade on them as well. You can actually remap them.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought that we got the higher powered version in the UK, but we didn't get the lower powered version because there wasn't a tax class to enable younger people to drive it. I thought it was the other way around. I didn't think there was a more powerful version apart from there was like an F1 Twizy. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I would imagine the steering was very heavy on that with no power steering, those big fat wheels.
Yeah. I like that the Twizy exists, but when I drove one, I was a bit kind of like, no.
I'll tell you what I've driven that was scary as hell. What's the one that leans?
Oh, yeah.
The Carver.
Yeah.
Carver. I drove that and I found that the steering was really direct and it was a bit slow. Other than that, it was pretty cool. But I kind of understand why they didn't actually sell that many. Fox has just put, talking about gas prices, it's way cheaper than electric. I checked my Octopus smart meter and it's a lot cheaper than electric, probably just me. Well, funnily enough, me and Alex were talking about electricity and gas before we came on because mine is actually coming up for renewal. And for some reason, Octopus still seems more expensive than Eon than me, for me, and what we do for gas and electric. But yeah.
Well, actually, speaking of gas and electric, one indirect way that they could support it is by reforming the way that you pay for your energy. I mean, unhooking us from gas prices in terms of... So, again, I need to do this in a nutshell just in case people don't understand it. But basically, you get people talking about electricity costs and kind of the influence of renewables. Generally speaking, if you can get 100% renewable energy supply, it's very cheap. The trouble is that it obviously fluctuates and so on. Then sometimes you need to substitute it with a bit of fossil fuel on top, usually gas. Gas price then sets the bar for what everyone pays. So even if you're generating using a renewable electricity, you still sell it at the gas rates into the wholesale mix. So every time we lean on the gas supply, to gas powered power stations, the energy prices go through the roof. So one indirect way to support EVs would be actually to reform what unfortunately is the kind of global standard really for wholesale energy prices. Unfortunately,
that's been kicked down the road as well. There's so many cans down at the end of this road, mate.
Oh, I know, right? They're rolling and rolling and rolling.
They're stacking up, mate. They are stacking up. Plus, what if we took the hundreds and thousands of tons of food we throw to landfill? Could we put a massive distillery with sugar and yeast, make ethanol plus, and no landfill? That's a very good point. A very good point indeed.
But a lot of local authorities do collect food waste now, don't they? And you can't put it in your normal. I mean, Swansea, for example, you can't put food waste in your normal bins. They'll fine you for it. So that does go to, so it does go to one of those waste to energy plants. I'm guessing it's basically an anaerobic digester, isn't it? It goes to somewhere.
This has been annoying me for a while because we've been really good, separating soft plastics, recycling the normal stuff, and then we've got food bin. But it just feels that they could be doing so much more. But I know that there's added costs to it. But I'm not sure. I know we're talking about more of a car-based podcast here, but it's actually quite nice to hear that people are fined if they don't do it right, because it seems like they just don't give a toss. Because most people think everything's just going to be burned, because you get these leaks from different areas, whether it's your mate Dave or something that's maybe slightly more a better source of information, and you just think, why am I bothered doing all this if it's just going to be burned anyway? And my stepson worked at a recycling plant, and he said, even a slight bit of soiling on the recycling, it just gets burnt, everything burnt. So I was just like, wow, okay, from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Not that my stepson's a horse, but there we go. There we go. Yeah. So make all MPs and ministers to swap to EV or bicycle. Absolutely. I completely agree.
Speaking of MPs and ministers, there's one thing that I really hate, which gets bandied about it. The charges in Westminster, that loads of people keep flagging that they've banned EV charging. If you look at the report, they've just taken them out to replace them with different chargers. It's not that they've taken them out because chargers were quite early and they're old and technology's moved on. The same as, you can have array charging and load balancing now, back when they fitted. But so many people are flagging that as the fact they've banned EVs from charging in Westminster because of the fire risk. It's not. They've just set up to upgrade their charging infrastructure.
I think a better point to make is maybe that they would make better decisions on EV taxing if they actually drove them.
Because there was one that did drive there was one that did drive an EV, wasn't there? I think the last government,
just the one.
But their transport minister did actually drive Model 3.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name though.
Good lad. I think actually, driving one. And this is the thing, my next door neighbor, I've got a video coming out soon about it, of course I have. And he's gone from a massive Ford diesel truck, and now he's got a Tesla Model 3 after about 3 years after calling me, everything under the sun, which is related to EV drivers and all the rest of it. And now he's got his Tesla. He absolutely loves it. And when it locks, it says, "So long, gay boy." And, he loves it. So that video is coming up soon. But yeah, it just goes to show and also his wife loves it as well, more so than their diesel car. And they're like, "Oh, I wish we'd changed sooner." It's just getting people in it. People hear this story all the time. They've got a driveway, so it suits them. But yeah, I think we've heard that story many times over, haven't we? Everyday Life 621. I think that's your first comment, mate. Thanks for joining us. Strategy is 100% electric in next 5 to 10 years. Doubt we'll see any change in budget, maybe even more on fuel tax. I think you're right.
Actually, that's the one thing I think we will see is the return of the fuel duty escalator.
Yeah.
I think that's been frozen for such a long time that they'll do more of a stick rather than give EV drivers.
Come down. Petrol and diesel prices have come down, haven't they? It's like 40%, I think I was reading the other day, since Sunak froze it last, which was really interesting. So absolutely, I think petrol and diesel does need to go up. How much though? 10p? That'll do, wouldn't it?
I think it'll be a difficult one to push through at that level. I think it's probably more likely to go back up to the standard 5, isn't it? But I mean, they probably, if either that or they'll remove the freeze, and just as you say, they'll have it keep on increasing, but from a level where it is now.
I mean, go on, sorry.
That was an RPI uplift, wasn't it? I think it used to be the fuel duty.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, on RPI and CPI, there is something that not entirely car related, but renewables related. They're trying to look at the feed-in tariff and changing that to the lower figure now. So if you signed a contract for FIT, it's actually this on for consultation now, where the two choices are basically you have to accept a lower payment than what was agreed on your FIT tariff. So they're going to put the inflationary increase down. So it's not being publicized much, but it's actually out to consultation at the moment. So if you have renewables, there's the potential that your increases could go down by the lower increase of inflation is one of the options, or they freeze it and it doesn't go up at all until it matches at the RPI rate. So it's an interesting thing because a lot of people signed that contract for that thing and it was agreed. So they based their calculations and everything on that payback, and that's not necessarily going to happen anymore. But it's just so hopefully they'll do something like that. But I think it's to happen anyway now.
Yeah, everyday life, I agree. There's not that huge amount of difference. I'm like Lewis. We have NHS lease solutions. 4 drivers is perfect if you have teenage daughters driving. Twizzy does 52 officially.
Wow,
that's faster than the army.
Yeah, I bet that's a lot of fun. It really amused me. Video that I did years ago. It was like one of the first, not the first, but one of the first EV track days at Landau in South Wales near these chaps. And there was a Twizzy going around the track. It was I always say RS Simmons, R. Simmons brought it down along with a Taycan and something else. I think R. Simmons, they had that special day of high mileage Teslas. I think it was yesterday. I couldn't make it because we had a family thing. But did anyone go to that? I should have checked X to see what was going on there. See if there was any interesting. How many 200,000 mile plus EVs turned up? Just in potatoes alone, it's 750,000 tons per year, which would make a great fuel. Or some good vodka, probably.
Yeah, fair.
The Chancellor couldn't get wet if she fell out of a boat. Moving on. I remember swapping to an EV in 2014 as my diesel was around 150 to 160 a litre. It made perfect financial sense. Crazy that we're in £1.20, £1.30 a litre.
Yeah.
11 years later. And this is why I think they should whack it up to 10p. Let's not fanny around with 5p. And yeah, okay, that's going to upset. It's probably going to squeeze a lot of people and put prices up and ruin inflation. But
do you remember when fuel protests were, what it was at then? And what the fuel protests were about?
£1.70?
No, it was that was actually the fuel protests were when it was going to cross the £1 mark a litre. If you remember, they had to upgrade a load of fuel pumps because most of them only did 3 digits.
A load of if you look at the data, there's a government spreadsheet where they do average weekly road prices. You can just run it through Excel and run a line graph for it. It's quite interesting that actually it's had that sort of spike a few years ago, but fuel prices have been really level for a long time. And actually compared to energy, the cost of electricity has gone up enormously. The cost of fuel hasn't moved at all. It's pretty much back where it was.
No, definitely. Yeah. So I think I might have mentioned a couple of episodes ago that Nigel Farage, his focus when I watched the budget and stuff, not that I'm going to swing any particular way politically right now. He was suggesting it's all about bringing that cost of electricity down. He was going to scrap all the net zero stuff, but he's going to bring the cost of electricity down, which, was going to help businesses and all the rest of it. It would certainly help the electrification of transport as well. You bring that electricity cost down. And if fuel prices are going up, you'd see a lot more fleets change to electric if they can. But, and I'm sure we'll touch on this at some point. I think HGV space is ripe for electrification at the moment. Most of the vehicles go back to the depot where they can potentially charge cheaply or cheaper, especially if the electricity price is coming down. And I'm sure that there's a very large percentage of HGVs that could electrify on certain routes. There's obviously quite a few HGVs that go really long distance, but they can stop on their 45-minute break, get a top up and keep going again. I mean, it's case by case, but it does feel that petrol and diesel, it is time for it to go up in price. It's just really unfortunate that, everyone is struggling in at the moment. So it's going to put even more of a burden on, but it'd be interesting to see what they do there. My dad's just popped in there, but I understand that Rachel Reeves is concerned with the disparity between those who have driveways to charge their cars and those who live in cheaper housing with on-street parking. Well, she really should, because if they're putting in anything to do with EVs in the budget, that has to be understood, because it's so glaringly obvious that is a massive disparity. Two-tier charging is
the only thing I fear with that is what will likely happen is they'll put it up for those with driveways. That will be that's the easiest solution, the fairest solution they'll see is that it needs to be normalized, so there shouldn't be an advantage for someone with a driveway, because at the moment the narrative is that the people who have EVs and driveways are generally more wealthy, so you'd be criticized less if you did it that way than did it the other way, potentially.
So then you got to think that will probably turn off most people to EV and it will just grind to a halt.
Yeah, but I think
doesn't mean they won't do it.
Yeah, if you think, because you've got to remember, as we've said, it's a lot of these people, London-based, they don't drive at all, let alone an EV or a petrol car. So it's hard to be in touch with those people in rural areas when you don't, when you think, if you go to London, you get on a tube. You don't, I mean, how many of you would think, "Oh, I'm going to have a lovely drive in the centre of London"? You wouldn't.
No.
So that's the problem. Being like city centric, they forget about the rural areas.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and the whale in the room, I've sold my Tesla as felt it really let down by the company. Oh, that's a shame. Well, I bought a Skoda diesel manual the other day.
Oh, what one did you buy?
It was a Skoda Superb Estate SEL, factory tow bar, 120,000 miles, full Skoda history, and dealer fit tow bar, and already sold it. Happy days.
Do they have the umbrella?
Yes, they do.
The Superb does have the umbrella in the door. Then.
Oh yes,
and the Passat now has the umbrella as well. If you buy the new Passat, because it's very, very, very close to the Superb. It's basically the other way around. But Superbs have traditionally been extended Passats. The new Passat is very, very similar to the Superb, and it's actually got umbrellas in the door.
You can't forget about the ice scraper behind the petrol cap, though.
Yeah.
Very important. Had both of those things. Lovely car, actually. Other than the fact it was the manual, really.
Good retrofit. I remember having a brown. It was a brown on brown Skoda. It was a Skoda Superb Estate. Lauren and Clement.
Yeah.
Lovely car that was.
So I thought I'd just throw some balance in here because it all felt a little bit EV. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to throw it out there.
Well, I mean, different times, and that was 2015. That was just before Dieselgate broke when I last had one of those in. I had one of those in a Mazda MX-5, and I remember thinking that's actually not a bad double car driveway. That.
Yeah,
something fun and something ultra practical, but yeah.
Well, that was a 2018 manual diesel, 120,000 miles, and it's still like £7,500-8,000 worth of car, which it's crazy. But it does seem like I've been looking at electric car pricing a lot more recently, and Teslas just don't seem to be going less than 10 grand again. They're just and Fiat 500s have done the similar sort of thing. There's quite a few. Mikey and No Cap, I think that's your first comment. Assume umbrella there to keep you dry when pushing it. It's not like the old Skodas, mate. Come on, these are pretty much Skoda. Like Skodas are better than VWs these days. Let's be honest. There was another one that Dean popped in. I need an estate in my life. ID7 Tourer for me next, hopefully. Ooh,
it is very good.
I know we're getting towards the end, but we seem to be going a bit estate heavy at the moment. So let's have a little chat about what's our favourite estate car, and everyone can whack it in their comments. Whether it's petrol, diesel, electric. In fact, I was thinking about it today, and I know exactly which car I'm going to go for. But Alex, Kev, you got a favourite estate, petrol, diesel, auto?
I know the one I really liked, which I had. Apart from if I say they're really stingy on spec, you'll probably guess what brand it's coming from.
Asia.
No, I really liked the Audi A6 e-tron Avant, but it was the S-Line model, and it was like 70k and didn't have power seats for that.
Audi. I don't know why Audi do that. Dean's gone for an RS6.
That's what I was going to say as well. Yeah, very
electric
very cool
or petrol or diesel. Though.
Do you know what? I wouldn't even. I mean, I know the RS6. I know it intimately, as well as the spec list. Big Golf RS8 for me all day long. Mark 7.5, 7.5 pan roof. Probably not the leather. Dyno audio, which is crap, but you'd put it in there anyway, and lane keeping. I can't think of any exciting electric estate cars. You got the Astra, the i5. You've got the
MG5.
The A6 Avant is one of them, isn't it? Because you can get that in a proper high-end spec one, the electric one, because you can get it all-wheel drive.
What, A6?
I mean, you're pushing 120,000 for that one, but
this is it. Yeah.
Actually, if we go in petrol, Volvo T5.
Oh,
T5R. T5 estate.
Yeah.
I was just watching, I was thinking of you, Kev, because I was just watching Johnny Smith's video of the Hyundai Ioniq 9. It's actually a lot nicer than I thought it was. Like the exterior in the video, it's a lovely looking car. That I always thought it was not as good looking as the EV9, but it's just very different, isn't it? Smooth.
I think I preferred the EV9 if I side by side.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer it side by side, but it's nicer than I thought it was. Hell of a big
I think they've done a good job of differentiating what could actually become quite samey vehicles otherwise. So I think they've done a good job of sort of giving them their own identity, which is a good thing.
I mean, if I was really picky on it, I'd say EV9 exterior, Ioniq 9 interior.
Moon on
I
a bloody
the interior's
stick,
better on the Ioniq 9.
You prefer the EV9 interior?
No, the EV9 exterior.
Yeah.
And the Ioniq 9 interior.
Why do you prefer the Ioniq 9 interior?
It felt a bit more premium.
Okay, interesting.
Just more soft touch stuff.
Okay. I inside now, I really like the EV9, but I've not done the Ioniq 9 yet. My dad's gone for his old Volvo 740 estate. I remember sitting in the middle and the back of that with the lap belt. Obviously, I was the least loved child with the least safety. That was a tank of a thing, that thing. I'm surprised you didn't say your V40 with a 1.8 Mitsubishi engine, Dad. Peugeot E308 SW. Nice.
See, they do look quite angry, the 308, doesn't it? I think it looks a more aggressive look than the Astra that's based on, or the Astra's based on the 308, whichever way it is. They share, don't they, a lot?
Yeah, of course. I never think that Peugeot and Vauxhall are the same sort of thing, but of course they are these days. Mercedes CLA Estate Electric coming soon. Interesting. I tell you what, I don't know if anyone noticed it, but I think Mercedes did something very, very clever. Their last video had some lovely females in it, which, that's a tick. Second of all, good job there's no females that watch this channel there. And then second of all, they had all three powertrains. So they had hybrid, they had electric, and they had whatever the ICE one was. And and then they had them all three at the lights, and they're like kind of racing each other, but not like racing each other. And I thought that was really clever. And it kind of harked back to the Ioniq. I've got another story. Harked back to the Hyundai Ioniq when they did the, this is the hybrid, they did a plug-in hybrid, didn't they? And electric. Yeah. Which I think is great. Because look, guys, we do everything. It's your choice. I just love that. And that just reminded me that we went for a curry Saturday night, and you'll never guess what hybrid the taxi driver picked us up in. And it wasn't a Prius. Get your comments in. What do you think it was? Hybrid car that wasn't a Prius. What did the taxi driver pick us up in? I'll make it a bit easier. It wasn't a Toyota.
Oh, it's going to be the Ioniq hybrid, isn't it?
Nope.
Oh.
It's a bit of a rarity. I was quite impressed. Everyone's left the chat now, so no one gets. It was a Hyundai. It was a Honda Insight.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. That's not something you hear about every day.
Still.
It done 306,000 miles.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive. Yeah, you were close, guys. Yeah, funnily enough, he did say that he wanted an Ioniq hybrid for his next car when the Honda went dead. I can't remember what year it was. I think it was like a 2003, maybe. They were really expensive cars when they first came out because it had the digital dial in the middle and then like the speed at the top. I just thought it was quite interesting. As soon as the car turned up, I was like, oh my God, it's a Honda Insight. And everyone was looking at me like I'm some sort of sad car guy. Obviously.
Yeah, because the later ones became a bit boring, didn't they? The later.
They were never very
just an ordinary car, really.
Yeah, I suppose they got a little bit less out there, didn't they? I suppose it's 9 o'clock, so we better finish up, guys. But if let's just talk about what we did last week, what we did this week. So, yeah, end of last week had a very exciting event at Zemo Partnership, talking on stage on a round table with DHL, Gregory Group, and Welsh Water with Jill Knowles, which was really good. There's some other really interesting people on stage there, like Josh Spencer of DAF, who's got great experience in electric. the lady from Mylance, how they're choosing massively rapid DC charging sites for HGV, and the lady from one of the DNOs. So that was a really interesting event last week. Been doing some videos, of course, and I've got one coming out this week, which is a bit of a massive mud in the face for Tesla, really. This next video I've got coming out, because they effed up on Rusty. So if anyone's interested to know what Tesla did massively wrong and why I went elsewhere, that video is coming out on Wednesday. And other than that, working hard with Dynamon as always. Alex, what are you up to?
Mostly secret squirrel, but I'm on budget duty on Wednesday, so I've got a busy day of sorting stuff out to do with what actually does come out of the budget, or potentially not a very busy day when she doesn't announce anything at all and it's all consultations, and I get to kind of just sit there and go, oh great, okay, well that was a waste of time. But yeah, that's the big thing this week, is trying to figure out reporting on the budget, which is no small task.
It's not going to be a positive one, let's be honest. Kev, what are you up to?
I really need to start car shopping, because my car lease ends the 1st of March, so I need to order something. So if anyone knows of any deals out there, I'm now looking. I mean, there's a short list of them.
Yeah.
So there's a short list of cars I've got on it.
Is the Tesla Model 3 on there?
Might be.
Oh,
but also
I'm going to be outnumbered. Come on, guys. Peer pressure. It's not fair.
Also, Ioniq 6 is on there. I mean, Polestar 2. There's a few. My main aim is I need a car that can do 400 miles to a charge, which does narrow the field a bit, unless I want to pay silly money for it.
That does, but I think the Hyundai Ioniq 6 is quite expensive, isn't it? So,
there's some deals sometimes.
Yeah, once in a blue moon. Black Friday. That's this Friday, mate.
I haven't seen the facelift one, and I want the facelift one, obviously. So, which is due imminently.
Mark has just made a really good point. He just said the original Insight is basically a cybercab. You're absolutely pop on right, mate. I think you absolutely nailed that one. Alex needs an AMI. He will get 400 miles. Surely.
I'd be surprised. I followed him in my car. So he got more efficiency out of his Mocha than my Ioniq 5 when we drove to the Chang'an thing.
What cars can you do 400 miles in? Obviously, Tesla Model 3, full drive or long range, I think you do it in. The Ioniq 6.
Summer, you'll do it in all the Ioniqs and the EVs things with the bigger battery.
Yeah.
So you can get 400 out of those. I mean, there's quite a few. Polestar, basically all the Polestar range in rear-wheel drive will do 400 miles. So there's a lot of choice out there. I like the Polestar 4, but I'm not sure of the width of the Polestar 4.
Yeah. That'll do you nothing, mate. Well, we'll have to have a separate session on that. When have you got to decide by? We've lost him. So, guys, thank you very much for commenting. Thanks for being part of the chat. We're going to be talking about the real budget next week. So it'll be interesting to see how Rachel from accounts is going to let us down. So thanks everyone for contributing. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Kevin. And we'll see you next time